Hey, everybody, it is Andy Smith here, your host with the most, 34-year veteran of the comic book industry, back with a tutorial. This one's a little different. A friend of mine, Joe Bernardo, San Francisco 49ers fan, but I don't hold that against him. He's an artist, and he is he he's a very hardworking artist. He shows myself and my buddy Dennis stuff that he's doing all the time, and I like to help people. I asked him if I could show this splash page he did as an example, and I actually drew over it in a Sketchbook Pro program and sent it back to him. Sent the PSD Photoshop file back to him with the layers so he could see it, dissect it, and try to make improvements to his art. So I asked him if I could show it in a video, and he said yes. So let's show. So this is what Joe posted in the room, the direct message room, whatever, that I belong in with him and Dennis. He's working on this graphic novel. Cool dynamic shot. His character's coming down at us in a nice perspective, as you can see. Blow up on it some, as you can see. And the first thing that stood out to me was it's more than 3-point perspective, which is fine. And let me just give you guys a quick breakdown of what 3-point perspective is. So create a new layer. I love Sketchbook Pro because it has this perspective tool up here. It's got 1 point. You can see it. You can move it around. It's got 2 points. You can move the 2 points as far out as you want off the paper, if you will. It's got 3 point. So you can see right here, this is an upshot because you've got the 2 points down here, the third point up there. And it even has fisheye, which is a difficult type of perspective to do. I've never done anything with this fisheye one before. Anyhow, he's doing 3 point, and you're looking up at these buildings. So just to show you real quick, you know, like I said, the thing I like about this tool is the perspective's there, and you can move these points wherever you want. So you got this going on, and then, he's got buildings. So this is traditional 3 point where you have these 3 points, right? And then boom, that's a building, let's say. And then you've got another building behind it. And it's going to the same points, which means every now and then it'll get a little funky there. And let's just do another building over here like this. And you can erase out just so you can see it clearer. Bing, bang, boom. So you've got these 3 points looking up. Now go back to Joe's drawing, and what he's doing is you can see the top roof angles of these buildings are going to different points on the horizon line down below. So what he's doing, and let me turn off the perspective so I can show it. What he's trying to simulate is, turn that off, is if you're looking straight down onto the scene, these are just the rooftops, right? So he's got a building like this. And instead of having buildings that are all parallel to each other, he's turning the buildings as well. So as soon as you turn the shape of the building like this, when you're doing 3-point perspective, you have to then indicate, let me turn that off, turn this one back on. You have to then move these points at the bottom. The third point stays the same at the top, unless a building is leaning over, then this third point would change. But if you're turning a building, these points have to change. So for instance, if there's a building next to this one right here, next to this one that I'm drawing these lines on right here, and it's turned, you want to first establish the top of the building. So let's say it's turned like this, right? So now it's angled like this, where you go back to your 3-point perspective and you bring this line down, the top line down to where it would hit, and it would hit somewhere around right here on the horizon line. Now I moved this point, I should have marked it from over here, let's say 5 inches this way. Well, to keep the building square, 90 degrees, this point needs to move the same distance out. So I'm just guessing it's right there. So now this building's turned. So the same third point up top is there. And now you see, and let me just get rid of this. Now you see that building's turned. Okay. Now let's say you're doing another turn. Nice thing about this Sketchbook Pro is when you reduce your drawing down and pop to perspective one, it stays. So that's very cool. So let's turn this off. Let's say you're doing another building and now the roof line is going to go this way, right? Well, you move this one to where this line would come down and hit. Let me just sketch in. This is the horizon line. Okay. So, oops, 3-point. So eyeball it down. It looks like it's right about here, here. So I move that one in a couple inches. This one moves out the same amount. Now I've done this a lot so I can eyeball it, but now you have this one here. Remember, we're looking up. This point doesn't change up here. And in this, oh, look at that. You're not going to see the side of that building anymore. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's not a perspective drawing tutorial, but let's just say he's got a building here now that because he's turning these rooftops. So you got this, sketch it in, the point's basically down to there. So you move this point back to here. Oops. You move the far point that was on the left over to here. And then for that side, this side of the building, this one goes out. So wherever this point was originally, this one goes out. And sometimes you can eyeball it. We'll say it's there. Side, side, or top, side. Boom. And we'll just do that there. And then when you turn it off, you erase out some of this stuff. You can now see that these buildings have this curve to them. That's what he was trying to do with the buildings he was drawing here. Okay. The other thing he told me after I sent it back to him is he was trying to go for a fisheye lens. Now, a fisheye lens is not that easy. And with fisheye lenses, the straight lines all curve. That's why, turn this off, when you use the fisheye lens tool here, oops. See, I've never used this before. Oh, okay. There we go. So I'm pulling these lines from that center point here. So these are messed up. So center point, you got to watch it, not to pull it. There you go. Like this. And then let me see. Like I said, I've never used this before. Okay, so this, yeah, this is weird. Like I've never I've never used the fisheye perspective tool in this program before, but I know how to do fisheye, so I'll just do it over top of Joe's. So let's select all this, delete it, open up Joe's. Let me lower the opacity so you can see me draw on top. So if he was doing fisheye and the perspective point, see, he's got these buildings up here as well. And the perspective point is, let's say, oops, I just drew right on that layer. I didn't want to do that. I'll do it on this one. Is here. Fisheye would mean all these lines would curve like this. From that point. Now I'm just roughing it in, but you get the idea, right? Trust me, this will make sense. And then you've got everything's curved. So you got these concentric circles coming out from that main point like that. And then if you're going to do these buildings, for instance, you got this one here, it would curve like that and then curve down from that point. And then even this would curve as well, the side. And then you can still turn the buildings like he's trying to show. Let's just do one more that's not turned. Scott McDaniel, artist, great artist, did Batman, Nightwing, Superman for a while. Great at fisheye stuff, right? And you got this building down here, which is turned. So basically, this point here would be out here somewhere to the left, and it would curve like that. But the main point up here, the third point, would still be the same. That's not going to change. So fisheye is just curving. And then this building here curves coming from this point. Let me just do it with a ruler. Well, no, I don't want to do it with a ruler because it won't be straight. So I'll still freehand it like this, like this. And then the side of it would curve as well. And then you get that fisheye look where everything's bowing. And that's what he was going for. I did not know that when I did my initial draw over. So when I did my initial draw over, let me see where my buildings are. I think they're right here. Oh, they're right here. What I did was I was looking at this drawing he did as just 3-point perspective where he was turning the buildings. So I found a point. And the way I did that originally was I took my ruler tool and I took one of the main buildings. I think it was this one. And I took the line and I just drew it up like that, right? And then what you want to do is you want to take a line that's far away from it. You don't want to do one that's right next to it. You want to take one that's far away. So this is the point. So then I took a line that was all the way over here, right here, from a building and drew it up, and I found the perspective point, the up point on the 3-point perspective. And then once I had that, I was able to take the perspective tool, put it on 1-point perspective like this, move the point up to the one I established, and then I just drew the lines converging to that point for all these buildings he did, even the ones up top here. So then when you turn off his layer and you look at it, turn that off, you can see, wow, look at this upshot. You know, you're like lying on the ground, looking up towards the sky, and all these buildings are just shooting up. But like I said, he had some buildings turn this off so you can see it better, turning, you know, as well, which is fine. They all still go, oops, that's not the right one. Where's the right layer? They all still go to this point. It's just now they're turning. So once you have it turn like this, you can create any angle you want for the roof of the building to show them turning. It's getting the side right so they look 90 degrees. You know, not all buildings have to be, you know, have 90-degree angles in their corners like this. You know, you can have a building that looks like this, you know, has a shape like this where the corners kind of cut off. And, you know, by doing that, we'll even use, let me take that off. We'll use this one point I set up. By doing that, it would be this. And then if you want to just keep these lines, the edges of the building parallel, you could. Like that. See, now this is going off in perspective, and it's only 1 point perspective. But if you want to make one of these buildings look like that, let's say this one right here, it would cut over this way, which now means that's the edge, that's the edge. And now you have this shaped building. The thing is, there's a horizon line way down. As soon as you start turning buildings, each one of these buildings is going to have different points, like I said, way down on the horizon line down here. So for this one building in the corner that I just did, let me see if I can find it using 3-point perspective. So remember, the 1 point is there that all the lines go to up top. Down here, we need to find, let's see, we'll just say it's down here. It's lower than that. This is out further. So I'm just going to redo some of the lines in this building. So you put the 3-point back, you've got the verticals going to the 1 point up top. And then let's see, that's close enough. For the front of the building, I've got the point all the way down here to the lower right. Oops. Nope, I didn't do it right. I got to bring this in some. I'm just eyeballing this. Let's see. Nope. And when you start perspective anyhow, you start it by eyeballing it. And then once you eyeball it, you figure out the horizon and stuff. So let's see. Yeah, close. So there we go. So this is the front of the building. If you're going to be changing these points a lot, do a grid on the front of the building like this, really light pencil. So you don't have to find the points again. You can just go off the grid you established. And then you got this side of the building here. going to the point to the lower left. And then this right here, enlarge this some. This line right here is almost parallel to the horizon line. So you can just keep it that way. So just take your ruler and just do basically parallel lines. I'm freehanding it, but you get the idea. Like that. Turn off Joe's underneath. And then you can see you've got this building in this lower left-hand corner that has a flatter shape on the corner and then cuts back. But you've got to find the points. So anyhow, that was the first thing I did on his drawing was fix the perspective. Because one of the things that can be hard too is making sure your 90-degree angles are proper. And what I mean by that is if you look at this building right here, Joe has in the corner. Let me do another layer. Let me do a different color so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay. You've got his roof line this way and then this way. That's pretty good. That's you know, I eyeballed it, but I'd say that's accurate, you know, good 90-degree corner in there. Now, I will admit I have forgotten some things because I'm used to eyeballing stuff, but I can tell you if you look at this building here and you drive this line straight across the top of the roof and then do it like that, like he has it, sure, that doesn't look bad. That looks like a 90-degree angle, right? However, all his buildings are going to a different point up in the air. And like I said before, they can only go to one. So this one building looks right now, but when you actually put on their perspective properly, like this, you erase out the line that wasn't right or the lines that aren't right. This is not 90 degrees. The way that angle cuts this way. 90 degrees for this building, and I'm eyeballing it, but would probably be more like this now that the vertical lines converge to the proper point. So anyhow, that's the first thing I drew over on his piece, because when I saw it, and I like I said, I really like Joe. I love artists. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you want to be an artist and you're drawing, I commend that. And I want him to do the best stuff he can. So the first thing I thought when I saw this drawing was that perspective could be so much better to pull this piece together, you know. So that's the first thing I did. The next thing I did, since I was getting into it, and I always talk about this, guys, go back and look at my previous tutorial videos, is construction, figure construction, basic shapes. You gotta have the good foundation. And what I mean by that is if you look at Joe's drawing here, for instance, look at this arm coming at us. Oops. Okay. Using my ret, if you look at the arm coming at us, let me blow this up really big so you can see it. See how he's got the bicep coming out and then it dips down here and then goes in? This is where you need to have the strong fundamentals of the basic shapes underneath, because muscles don't cut in like that. So the next thing I did was I drew over his drawing with the mannequin underneath. And let me pull this back. I'll keep it pulled in pretty tight. Let's lower the opacity on this layer a little more so you can see it. So this is what I'm always talking about. Get your basic shapes in there. Figure construction. This is the mannequin. You know, the mannequin is the foundation of the drawing. Before anatomy, before the musculature, you get down the mannequin. This is a torso. I'm not exaggerating it. This is pretty much just a real, you know, lack of a better word, real torso drawing here. We're looking up at it a little bit. The waist box sits below it. This is the hole for the leg to come out of. The legs come out there. The arms come out of the side. You can draw through so you can see the other side. And then you can see how the shoulder sets back in. So there's the kind of subtle foreshortening and overlap like that. You get this mannequin shape down, and then you adjust it, you know. Rib cage cuts in. Neck comes out. So you want to get that shape down. So you can see that's what I did here on his drawing. Now, the one thing I didn't do, I stuck with his proportions and such. And what I mean by that is, if you look at his drawing, you can see, let me just copy this one layer here. Where am I? Right here. No, right here. Okay, because I don't want to lose that one, but I want to show you. Pull this to the side, and I'll boost up the opacity on his layer here. And let me do this so you can really see it clearer. I'm going to get rid of everything except the figure on his, mostly everything. I mean, I'm just doing it pretty quick just to show you guys. I don't care about the coat. I just care about the figure. So I'm basically just outlining his figure here. You'll see. Selecting his figure, inverse. There we go. Oh yeah, turn that off. There. Now you can see, let me lose that. Let's see, looking at my layers over here. There we go. It's this one. I'm going to pull this one to the other side, actually. Here. Oh, why'd that happen? That's odd. For some reason, you know what? I'll just do this, do this, do this, do this. All right, that was weird. Okay, anyhow, finally we got there. Now I can up the opacity on his regular figure. And you can kind of see, sorry, that took a little while to get to. You can see I kept the arm. So his hand's here. I kept the hand there. This hand and arm, I didn't want to redraw totally. I just want to put the mannequin in. So when I sent this to him, he could see the shapes and stuff underneath. The foreshortening is a little messed up on both of these arms, but that's okay for now. That's not the point of what I was trying to do here. What I was trying to do is so you can see the figure mannequin underneath. And a lot of people skip this. You know, I've seen some of Joe's underdrawing before. He goes to the next stage of penciling, and I actually asked him one time, is that how tight you go before you go to the next stage of your penciling? And he said, yeah. And the reason I asked that is because, in my opinion, after, and I don't have an example of it, but after his initial pencil sketch of the figure, before he tightened it up to tighter pencils to ink, he should have done another step with this mannequin to get the construction down more accurately, then go the next step. Because once basically he did this rough drawing of the figure, kind of like a gesture drawing. That's fine. That's how most people start. Most people don't start with this tight mannequin here. They start with a looser, I guess, showing and not telling, Andy. I'll just show real quick. Let's see. You know, usually, let me blow up. Oops. Sorry about that. Blow up over here. Usually you might start going, oh, my figure's running like this. Oh, yeah. And, you know, you get this scribbly shape, right? And you're like, yeah, oh, yeah, figure's taking off. He's running. Oh, yeah, you know, or maybe he's, you know, lunging or something. Both his legs are back, you know, different angles and whatnot. And his head's here. You know, this is fine. That's what a lot of people start with. You know, I mean, that's what I start with. But after you do that, right, you get this scribbly thing down, you can hit it with your kneaded eraser and then tighten it up a little more. And that's when I start thinking about, I always do that. Is that, wait, why is that not as dark as I want it to be? You know what? I'm going to go to black when I do this part so you can actually see it better over the red. This is where I'll start going, okay, let me bust in, you know, the mannequin. And the mannequin, that blocky looking mannequin, depending on the size of the figure you're drawing and stuff, you can change it. You know, this is just quote unquote your average normal, you could say, figure, right? So I see his shoulders are doing this, so I'm just kind of blocking it in. And then I look at his waist, and the one leg here is coming forward, so that's going to twist the hips forward a little bit. And they're coming forward, so he has an arch like this, a curve. So his little waist box here is coming forward some, and then you can pop in. And this is where you can also go, oh, this leg's a little long in my little short. I'm sorry, this leg's a little short in my initial scribbly sketch, so I'll lengthen that more the way it should be. Pop in the knee, do the back leg. And see, I'm just thinking the basic shapes. And then the foot, and I always figure out bottom of the foot first. So this is the heel. I square it off, bottom of the foot. And then the foot's a wedge shape like this. And it get, you know, these shapes are more intricate, but right out of the gate, I'm just thinking about the overall shape of it before I start thinking about the anatomy and how it does change some. This leg is going back a little more, so it's foreshortened back more. And it's spread apart from this one. The back leg is going back some. Once again, the heel. This is the bottom of the foot, and then it arches down because the foot's kind of this wedge shape. And then the arm, it's a ball. The upper arm's a cylinder. Elbow's a ball shape. This forearm's a little too long, so I'll shorten it up when I put the actual basic shape in. Then the hand is a blocky wedge shape. This arm, remember, draw through. So you see that this has a side to it that we can't see. That side of the body, but it helps you place where the shoulder goes. The arm's coming at us. Like that. This forearm's a little long, so I shorten it. It's coming at us like this. Wedge shape for the hand. It's in a fist. You've got the neck hole, cylinder for the neck. And then the head is an egg shape. And then the eye line, brow line curves around, so he's looking up a little bit. And then when you turn off the red underneath, you can see I now broke that sketchy figure down. So my point to Joe was, after you get your scribbly like figure down, before, a lot of people will get this. I'll show another layer. A lot of people will get the scribbly figure down like that, and then they'll start. And this is going to be hard for me because I can do this, but they'll start popping on anatomy, but you might lose proportion and stuff because this scribbly figure isn't that accurate. You know, so that forearm might be too long, the upper arm might be too short. You know, you might make the waist box too thick because you're going off your scribble line back there. That's way too thick, too much hip. So, you know, stuff like that. And it just doesn't work that well. So I think it's good to have the foundation of the mannequin underneath. And like I said, this mannequin, you can, if you have my how to draw book, Drawing Dynamic Comics, let's see, nope. Where was it? It's here. Is this here? Yeah. You can mess with the shape of that box. You could have a guy that has a really thin waist and a wide shoulders, right? Look at that tiny little waist, wide shoulders, and his hips then are really small. Like that. And then if his upper body's that big, his arms are going to be probably bigger and thicker. But his legs will be thinner to match with the lower body you got in right here. See? So that's how you can mess with the proportions for like a Hulk type character or whatever, right? So anyhow, so this is what I did over Joe's figure to show him the construction. Like I said, technically, and I will do this, I didn't want to This drawing, as you saw that I originally showed, was 100% inked. So I want to show Joe this for future reference. You know, if Joe was like, oh my God, I'm going to go back in and do this page 100% over from scratch, that's totally up to him. I'm looking at it like when I was in the Cubert school and we would show our completed assignment to the teacher would correct it. And he wasn't expecting us to go back and totally redo it. We could if we wanted to, but the point was for future reference. Remember it for the next drawing. You know, if I saw this in pencil or rough sketch form and I did all this, then I would expect Joe to redraw and do all that stuff because it was only in the rough sketch or pencil form. But when it's 100% inked and everything, I'm just showing him this for future reference. But like this arm, for instance, here, I gotta create a new layer. So you've got, oops, I always do that. You've got side of the box here, the arms coming forward, and you draw to the wrist. And now you can see the way he has the curve of the glove. Oh, I should do this bigger for you guys. Let's erase this. You can see the curve of this glove. Well, if you take it around like this and continue it through, that's going to be a short arm, okay? Because coming like this is almost a side view. I mean, a side view is flat. If this is totally coming at us, like Joe really is indicating, because the arm is so short looking, this needs to be open a lot more. And this is the concentric contours. This needs to be open a lot more to show that arm coming at us in that perspective that he set up. Now you can look at my hand in my screen here. This is the hand going to the arm, and I'm not bending my wrist, but you can bend your wrist like this, right? You can't bend your wrist in towards where your thumb is, but where your small finger is the outside, you can bend it like that. So Joe's drawing, wrong hand. Joe's drawing is, I'm trying to do this right for you guys. The arm's coming at us like this, but he's got the wrist. You can say the wrist is bent, okay? So now with the arm coming at us like this, the glove is still going to be curved more, but then you can bend the hand, like I said, the wrist, to where it is a side view of the hand, because that's basically what he's kind of showing, is almost a side view of the hand. Oops, wrong one. So with the side view of the hand, finger, you only see really a little bit of the middle finger knuckle. And then the arm goes back in perspective properly. That's the deltoid. Glove. And now you have the arm coming at us more. And then with this weapon he's holding, if the wrist is bent, the weapon goes back in perspective like this. The fingers wrap around it. And then you've got him holding the weapon more properly as well. Like that. So you get the foreshortening of the arm done properly. But, you know, when you're doing teaching and stuff, it's one step at a time. So that. And then lastly, what I want to do, and guys, they did not have this stuff when I was learning to draw. I wish they did. I'm just trying to get the layers back on the proper way. So give me a second here. I want that layer. Yep, I want his layer. I want the draw over layer I did right there. There's an app. Now, I don't generally do this. Where is my phone? Oh, I gotta grab my phone. 34 years ago, when I got in the business, we had drawing books. We had books that showed we use live models. And then for poses, we would take photographs of ourselves in complicated poses. With the handy dandy internet now, you can get these wonderful apps. You can get these wonderful apps that will help you draw, as in, oh, you need to figure out a pose? No problem. Now, I downloaded these on my phone because, guys, I'll be honest, every now and then when I'm drawing a pose, sometimes I don't have to look in a mirror anymore, foreshortening, stuff like that. I can use an app to help out. So I'm going to full screen myself real quick. This app is rather inexpensive, and I actually have 4 of them you'll see on this screen, and I'll open them up. And I even have them in a folder, art reference. So you've got art pose, female, art pose, which is a male, hand, which is hands and stuff, and then 3D anatomy, which is like it says, anatomy. Now you can see next to the hand in the 3D anatomy, there's a little cloud with the arrow. That means they needed to be downloaded from the cloud, which means I haven't used them in forever. Because now if you don't use an app in a long time, it just sits up in the cloud until you use it and it downloads. For this drawing of Joe's, I downloaded the art pose and art pose female. So you open up this fancy art pose app. I'm opening up the male, and it looks like this, right, when you open it up, right? Now, this is, I would do a screen share if this was available as a desktop app, but as far as I know, it's not. So you got that, and you've got over here. Oops. So, well, you can turn the figure like this, whatever. Up here, I'm not going through this whole app. You can change the lighting, so you can move the lighting. You can make the guy with this slider right here on the left. You can make the dude kind of skinny. Oops. That's as thin as you can make the guy, or you can make the guy sliding it all the way up. Beefy dude like that. For Joe's thing, I kept him just in the middle, which you could say is normal fit dude. And then the lower right-hand corner, you tap, oops, and it shows these dots. And if you click on one of those dots and then move up and down on the screen with your finger, you can pose the figure. So, and then there's the female version as well. And they're called Art Pose. So Google Store, Android, whatever, iPhone, Art Pose. Every now and then I'll pop that app open when I'm drawing a pose that is kind of complicated, and I'll just pop. Oh, another thing you can do too is, let me show you this. I forgot. Come on. So you got that. Go back to the camera on the left where that you can turn the figure. See that little icon above right there I'm pointing to? If you tap that once, it gives you color anatomy. If you tap it twice, it gives you gray tone anatomy. You can change the lighting and stuff. So every now and then I'll use this just to check anatomy, foreshortening. I might use it sometimes to mess with lighting, whatever. You know, I don't know. Every artist I know, I should say, and I've been doing this 34 years. My buddy Bart Sears, he's been drawing comics professionally for 40 years, I think. He'll still use reference every now and then. Every artist I know will use reference still for their artwork. Look at the fantastic painter Joe Jusko. You know, he'll use reference for his paintings. There's nothing wrong with reference. Okay, so what I did was I want to show him beyond the mannequin that I drew using that app. I created the figure. Hold on here. Why is this not? Oh, that's why. Wrong thing. I created his figure as best I could using that app, as you can see. And you're going, but I thought it wasn't for a PC. You're on your PC. Yeah. The other thing you can do on that app is in the upper right-hand corner of the app, there's a camera icon. If you click that camera icon, it'll save that pose to your camera roll. So I saved it to my camera roll, emailed it to myself, and then popped it in here for Joe. So I tried putting, let me turn off this, boost up the opacity of Joe's original drawing. So I tried putting this figure into the original pose Joe drew as best I could. I didn't mess with lighting or anything. Whatever the lighting was on the app, I kept. But by doing that, Joe could look at this and see the foreshortening, how it would be, the overlaps, things like that. And one thing I would recommend is don't trace this off, right? Because it's just used for reference. Draw next to it. Use the basic shape stuff, the mannequin stuff that I set up, which I'm looking for. I should really have numbered these better. Right here. You know, use this, use that to build your mannequin. And then if you need to, until you memorize the anatomy and how the muscles move, use this to look at to add the anatomy over top your figure. Okay. And that'll help. Another thing too is create the pose first, scribbling, however you do it. If you look at my book, Drawing Dynamic Comics, and how I build a figure, it starts with the gesture, like I showed you previously up top of here, and then I build upon that. If you look at How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, John Buscema, same thing, starts with the gesture, and then he builds upon it, thinking about the shapes and stuff. So build your figure out of your head, and then if you're having problems figuring out the foreshortening properly or the anatomy, use this app, and then looking at your figure, pose the figure in the app to match what you drew, not the other way around. Don't pose the figure in the app first, because you might lose some of the dynamics in the figure that you drew. So that is basically it for today. Just want to go over and show this. And that is, Joe, I asked Joe, like I said, can I use your drawing as an example? And he said, you sure can. So I want to do that. Joe did ask me to show you guys the final page after he revised it some. Like I said, you can see this is 100% inked. This is a photograph he took of it. That's why it's warped at the bottom and stuff. And technically I should have drawn over an image that was totally flat because it is warped some, but it didn't mess with the overall drawing that much. That's why I just didn't mind. Here's the finished drawing he did after it was scanned, and he did some clouds and stuff in Photoshop, it looks like. I know he's going to color it as well. He did some gray tones on it. So the biggest thing he did was he took out these buildings at the top because they just did not work at all. He didn't mess with any of these other buildings down here or the figure stuff, which, like I said, I 100% get because the page was done. To reiterate, if he showed me this in a rough pencil stage and I did these revisions to it, I'm sure he would have gone through and done a bunch of them. But I 100% understand this is totally inked. Like I said, in the Kubert school, they would, of course, in the Kubert school, critique our work through every stage. But even at the very final stage, there was still stuff that they would find on tracing paper and go over top of. And they didn't expect us, unless we really wanted to fix it. Just remember the stuff for next time. So that is kind of what I expect Joe to do for next time. And he did change like these buildings right here, these three right here on the side, you can tell are different perspective from the three here. He moved them. So he did make some of these changes in Photoshop, which you can do sort of easily. So kudos to him. That is pretty freaking cool looking regardless. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I might do more of these draw overs because I used to teach, and this is how I would teach. I'd look at somebody's art in class and draw over it with tracing paper. So let me know. Follow me on Twitter. And if you have a drawing you want me to draw over and do this for, at Andy Smith Art on Twitter, and maybe I'll pick your drawing to do a draw over of. Guys, thank you so much for watching, as always. Of course, as you know, I have a campaign right now on the Indiegogo called Lilineth Infernal Conflict. Lilineth is back, badder than ever. This is a standalone story. You don't need to know anything before this to read this story. But if you want to find out more about the world of Kor-Drath, where she first appeared, there is a catch-up tier. That is my cover. The homage cover I did. We've got a variant cover by the great, fantastic John Malin. And I'm going to play the trailer. The link is in the description below. Go back, Lilineth Infernal Conflict, because without you guys backing the book and your support, I wouldn't be able to do it. You guys are the producers of, well, Astonishing Comics and Lilineth Infernal Conflict. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. And of course, go back, Lilineth Infernal Conflict. Here is the trailer. Goodbye, everybody.